Hello and welcome to our channel Personalityopedia.
Today we have another video on social and professional ethics, as the topic is an important aspect of personality development as well as equally important for management students. Today we will talk about values, norms, beliefs, virtues, morality, moral standards. Values are individual beliefs that motivate people to act one way or another. They serve as a guide for human behavior. Generally, people are predisposed to adopt the values that they are raised with. People also tend to believe that those values are right because they are the values of their particular culture. The word value is derived from French word valoir, which means worth, merit, usefulness, or importance of a thing. Values are qualities that are considered valuable. They represent an individual's highest priorities and deeply held driving forces.
Characteristics of values are 1. Values represent an individual's
highest priorities and deeply held driving forces.
Values are the hub of personality and is powerful force affecting behavior. Many values are relatively constant and durable. Values add judgment element. Norms are ways of behavior that are considered normal in a particular society.
Social norms are regarded as collective representations of acceptable group conduct as well as individual perceptions of particular group conduct.
They can be viewed as cultural products which represent individuals' basic knowledge of what others do and think that should do.
Norms are the agreed-upon expectations and rules by which a culture guides the behavior of its members in any given situation.
Norms deal with standards of appropriate behavior.
A norms calls for right action and implies a general reason for the rightness of the indicated conduct.
Belief is the attitude that something is the case or true.
Belief to refer to personal attitudes associated with true or false ideas and concepts.
Belief is an idea that a person holds as being true. A person can base a belief upon certainties, probabilities, or matters of faith.
A belief can come from different sources, including
1. A person's own experiences or experiments. 2. The acceptance of cultural and societal norms. 3. What other people say. Each person evaluates and seeks sound reasons or evidence for these potential beliefs in their own way.
Once a person accepts a belief as a truth they are willing to defend, it can be said to form part of their belief system.
Virtues. Virtue is behavior showing high moral standards.
Virtue is moral excellence. A virtue is a trait or quality that is deemed to be morally good and thus is values as a foundation of principle and good moral being. Virtues or character which distinguished from duty.
Some duties of perfect obligation are called duties.
They can be exacted from an individual by the state.
But duties of imperfect obligation are called virtues. The habitual performance of duties leads to virtue's disposition.
Duties are turned into virtue by habit.
Virtue refers to acquired disposition of mind.
The virtue man is one who has acquired a fixed habit of performing duties.
Virtue denotes a good character. Duty denotes a particular's action that we ought to perform.
Virtue is the excellence of character, which is the result of the habitual performance of duties. Virtue is the habit of deliberate choice of right actions. Virtue is the habit of controlling instincts and impulses and realizing the good of the self as whole.
Virtue is an excellence of character.
Virtue, says Aristotle, is the habit of choosing the relative means, as it is determined by reason and as the man of practical wisdom would determine it. Socrates, for Socrates, virtue is knowledge. If a person fully understood the nature of the good, he could not fail to pursue it. On the other hand, if person did not fully understand the nature of the good, he could not be moral except by accident.
Plato. Cardinal virtues. Cardinal virtues are the fundamental virtues on which the other virtues are based.
Plato recognized four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice.
Morality. A morality is a set of rules to guide the actions of an individual human being.
Rand says about it: a code of values to guide man's choice and actions.
Morals are judgments, standards, and rules of good conduct in the society.
They guide the people toward permissible behavior with regard to basic values. In other words, morality is a set of rules that shapes our behavior in various social situations.
Moral principles.
1. Prescriptive principles must grammatically formulated as imperatives to emphasize the obligation which is associated with act. 2. Universalizable principle must apply to all relevant agents equally.
3. Overriding/compelling principles should be the primary motivational factor for actions falling under the umbrella of morality. 4. Public principles presuppose some social interaction. 5. Practicable principles must be achievable by ordinary moral agents. Moral standards. Moral standards are those concerned with or relating to human behavior, especially the distinction between good and bad behavior. Moral standards involves the rules people have about the kinds of actions they believe are morally right and wrong, as well as the values they place on the kinds of objects they believe morally good and morally bad. Characteristics of moral standards. 1. Moral standards involve serious wrongs or significant benefits. Moral standards deal with matters which can be seriously impact, that is, injure or benefit human beings. 2. Moral standards ought to be preferred to other values. Moral standards have overriding character or hegemonic authority. If a moral standard states that a person has the moral obligation to do something, then he/she is supposed to do that even if it conflicts with other non-moral standards. 3. Moral standards are not established by authority figures. Moral standards are not invented, formed, or generated by authoritative bodies or persons such as nations' legislative bodies. Ideally, instead, these values ought to be considered in the process of making laws. 4. Moral standards have the trait of universalizability. Simply, it means that everyone should live up to moral standards. To be more accurate, however, it entails that moral principles must apply to all who are in the relatively similar situation.
5. Moral standards are based on impartial consideration. Moral standards does not evaluate standards on the basis of the interest of a certain person or group, but one that goes beyond personal interest to a universal standpoint in which each person's interests are impartially counted as equal. 6. Moral standards are associated with special emotions and vocabulary. Prescriptivity indicates the practical or action-guiding nature of moral standards. These moral standards are generally put forth as injunction or imperatives. These principles are proposed for use, to advise, and to influence to action retroactively. This feature is used to evaluate behavior, to assign praise and blame, and to produce feelings of satisfaction or of guilt.